and they can put an air closet so those are some of the new things that we're doing, and hopefully we'll find that to be enjoyable for all of you. We have a raffle, and I think it went quite well on one of Joe Bursel's old rods, and Len has been manning that table. Thank you, Len. And if anybody still has an interest, it's for doing a regular raffle for a Sage ESN 10-footer. It's a two-way 4-piece with a Teton reel and line. And there was a silent option item over there on the table for orbit zero gravity anyway, and it also has a fellow reel with it. We have a couple of new members. I'm going to ask you to stand when I call your name and kind of tell us where you're from.
Hell is going on here? He's not the presenter. What the hell's this?
And it's like, boom, right at 70, the mile marker.
Live well full of greenbacks. According to everybody else, you're not going to catch any fish. So, little do they know, Tampa Bay is actually an amazing fly fishing estuary. So, show of hands. Tonight we're talking about fly fishing for redfish. How many people here have never caught a redfish on fly? Raise your hand. Okay, quite a few of you. Those that have caught a redfish on fly, how many of you have actually sight casted it? You saw the fish, you presented to the fish, cast it, caught, whole 9 yards. All right, just a few. They're definitely a species that can be taken with blind casting, but I can tell you that sight casting for redfish is probably about as exciting as it gets around here. And in Tampa Bay, with the amount of pressure that we have on a daily basis, they're starting to become more like bonefish. We actually call them Tampa Bay bonefish because they're so spooky. And
Fucking guy.
Just hit me.
So, like I said, I do shadow cast fly fishing. I have quite a following on social media through Facebook and Instagram. If you care to follow me on any of those, just look for shadow cast fly fishing, both on Facebook and Instagram, and shadow cast fly on Twitter. I am also a sales rep for Ancona Boats. Ancona Boats and saltwater skiffs. They're a technical pulling skiff company based out of Fort Pierce. I've been a sales rep for them since 2011. Pretty much have run almost every boat that they make, including some they no longer make. So most of my time has been spent on technical pulling skiffs and or kayaks, searching out shallowest water I can possibly find. Shallower the better. Next. So redfish on fly. Basically, you can make redfish on fly as complex or as simple as you want. Now, with Tampa Bay redfish, they're very spooky, and most of what I'm going to be discussing happens in the months of November through the end of March. Those are our winter months. That's when Tampa Bay redfish really shine. You get those low tides, the water cools off, it clears up to almost looking like bottom. that is the time when you want to start finding those fish. Okay? We are usually using, in Tampa Bay, we're usually using 8 to 12 pound tapered tippets. You can do a simpler leader setup as well for your tippet. I'll go into that shortly, but for those really low water, super vodka clear water. This to make the cast from 50 feet away. That's how spooky we're talking. You lift the rod, they feel it, they see it. They're so.
No. Yeah.
One of the other things that you can do as an angler, whether it's a kayak or a pulling stick, is really slow down your approach. Flip Pallet, who was my idol in the 90s, getting into this fishing thing, and Jose, were my two idols. Flip used to say that if you are pulling your skiff slow, you're going too fast. You gotta slow it down even more. So the points we don't very rarely do I have two hands on the fish bowl on one. More often than
Thank you,
not,
Winnie.
I'm just
Where do you mean to come?
how I push my stick. At the same time, we are crawling along. We basically make like a hole in the water. So less ripple you create on the surface of the water, the better your chances are those fish aren't going to feel you and take off. So very slow approach with your skiff and also your fly. You know, when the water is cold, it gets down in the 60s. These fish are going to exert a lot of energy. Okay, they're trying to maximize their caloric intake while minimizing the amount of energy that they're going to use. So more often than not, they're not going to chase down a bait fish that's doing this. It's going to be something very slow, very methodical, very natural, like a shrimp or a crab. Already some crab. When's the last time you saw a crab jump around like this? It doesn't happen. They step down the bottom, they bury themselves. So you want to use a very slow, methodical approach. Thanks. The gear that we're usually using is anything from a 6-weight to a 9-weight fly rod. During the winter time, when I'm looking for redfish, I usually tend to lean closer to the lighter side of things, just because I want that more delicate presentation. Some companies out there are now making 5 weights that have fighting butts, and that can be a very effective tool. Have a nice, calm, clear day that you get really delicate presentation. We're using large harbor reels. This is actually my 8-weight setup from Waterworks Lampson. Use a large harbor reel, and what that does is it helps you pick the line up quicker when you're trying to fight the fish and reel it. That way you're not sitting there making so many cool turns like this. It's more like this. So you're gaining more line per revolution of the reel. In these shallow water conditions, we're using weight forward floating fly lines. And for me personally, I prefer clear lines or clear tip lines. A company with fly line that I use called Monarch. They make all clear floating fly lines. They also make phantom tip fly lines, which has the first 15 feet of the line all clear. And that not only gives you an added degree of stealth, but it helps you a little bit in fly turnover. Because when you have 15 feet of clear fly line, you don't necessarily have to use a 12-foot leader. You might be able to drop to a 9 or even 7-foot leader. So therefore you have 22 feet of clear before you get to your tallest fly line. Now, sometimes we can't get redfish. It doesn't matter how long the leader is. If you have all clear fly line, like I said, as soon as you move it, I'll go nuts. Like I said, 8 to 12 with 15 to 20 pound bite to it. On those really clear days when you know that there is going to be nothing but redfish, you're not going to come across on a snook, you're not going to cast any snook, you can get away without the bite to it. and just go to a straight 8 to 12 pound tippet. Now, if you want to make a more simpler leader system, something that doesn't involve buying an expensive paper leader, or you don't want to use a paper leader, the guide over on the East Coast, Jon Bull, taught me a real simple leader setup. He says this will work for anything, anytime, anywhere. 40-pound leader, and then nail knot it to 20 pound. And that's it. Just put those two together, and off you go. That's actually the leader setup I usually use for beach snook, or dock lights, anything like that. And then what I do is my butt section, I take the weight line that I use times by 5, so 8 weight line times 5, my butt section is going to be 40 pounds because that diameter is supposed to be and then my tippet section, if you will be half of that, 20 pounds, and that'll turn over. You can adjust that based on your preference. If you want to go from 40 to 15, you can. Around dock lights, when I'm fishing for snook or juvenile tarpon, I'll do on my 8 weight 40 down to 25, and that'll be my leader setup. So it just really depends on how leader shot the fish is. Another important thing that you can use on your skiff, and it's always on my skiff, is a line management. There's all sorts of different line management tools. When we fish the beach, when we're walking the beach for snook, see all these guys walk around these buckets attached to their hip. Great tool. It's a lifesaver, especially when you fish for snook around the surf. But for redfish, we're usually going to stick with stripping mats or buckets when we're on the skiff. You can see in that picture there, that fish is laying on a company called Carbon Ring. They make that line. It's just like a rubber stripping mat with little pyramids on it, teeth. It just keeps the line from blowing off the deck. They make other things like spikes around the front of the skiff. Those blowing off. And they're great conversation starters when you're at the program too. I always had fun with people. If they would see the spikes on the front of my skiff and what those things are for, and I said, "You tell me." And I had, let's see, it was my wireless Wi-Fi network. It kept the seagulls off the front of my boat. It transmitting system from my VHF. I had all sorts of crazy stuff. And then when I tell them, it's what they look like remarks. But yet the idea that they just threw it in. The last and probably most important piece of equipment for sight casting redfish, high quality optics. And again, there is all sorts of different companies out there. Everybody has personal preference. I've been using the RCI optics for years. Whatever brand you decide to use, amber or copper. I actually keep 2 pairs of sunglasses on my skiff. One for low sun conditions. And another, these are for high sun conditions, which darken things. So if you have that copper and amber base, it's going to help tremendously in allowing you to see in the water, differentiate color, and see further out, pretty much. Next. All right. So this part here ends up being the big aha every seminar that I do, because people always ask me, well, what do you look for when you're on the flats? And you can look for any number of things. You look for jumping balls.
That still hasn't eaten.
Diving, look for other boats fishing in here if you want. What I look for are wading birds. Okay, wading birds are my friend. Okay, and it's something we've all seen out there, but never really.
The one that was on your little thing here, or this one?
Bird that I look for is the great blue heron. Is there anyone here that does not know what a great blue heron looks like? Perfect. Good. Y'all have lived on Earth for longer than 24 hours, so therefore we should know what one looks like. So here in the picture, we have a great blue heron. When you are on the flats, you're going to see great blue herons on the flats. If you see them and you can see more than half of their legs out of the water, think about where they're at and fish in front of them. Fish up tide of them, because the deeper water is going to be out in front of them. And remember where he's standing, because when the tide comes up, and his butt feathers are touching that water like they
Well,
are
that looks
now,
good.
that's where you.
Is that like perfectly on there? Okay.
If
And how's your
not,
little knee?
you
Might want to
will-
redo the knee, do the non-stick pants.
He's there for one reason and one reason.
Redo her knee with the
Snook, red, and trout, eat little shrimp.
non-stick pants. Oh, you have that, you use that one. Well, there's more
Joanne,
pad.
could you please mute your
Oh, shit, sorry.
computer?
And half of his legs, you're fishing out in front of him where it's deep. Remember where he was standing, because chances are that we fish their leg. Next. One other thing on that slide prior. Another thing we look for is tails, what we call tails, pushes, and busts, and wakes. Tail, obviously, redfish have an inferior mouth, which means their lower jaw does not extend out beyond their upper jaw like a snook or a tarpon or a largemouth bass. That would be called a superior mouth. So redfish have an inferior mouth, which means they have to go down to eat. And when they go down to eat, they're in that shallow water. Tail breaks the surface, they wave high at you, come and throw your fly on top of my head. Pushes, obviously, redfish are very methodical in the way they push. It's like a submarine weight. Busts is when they actually bust on the surface, eating on something. So those are other things you can look for. When you see a lot of mullet on the flats, that's a good place to start. If there are no wading birds present, redfish is or mullet is another great indicator of redfish being around. Actually, an old friend of ours, Jeff Page, used to say, "Where there's mullet, there's going to be redfish. You fish the mullet pulley. You fish those mullet pulley, you're going to win that tournament." So always look for signs. You know, when the mullet are in there, they're stirring up that bottom. The redfish will more often than not follow the mullet looking for a free meal. All fish are lazy. Every single one of them. There is not a.
Done yet?
No, they always, they can find a meal, they're gonna take it. So on this slide here, we have some examples of shrimp and crab patterns, which is pretty much like in the winter time. When I'm fishing for redfish, I'm usually in the winter time, I'm usually not fishing bait fish patterns. Unless there is an abnormal amount of bait, or we have a warm winter like in November or December, it hasn't really cooled down yet. Then I'll still throw some bait fish patterns, but in those coldest months, January, February, early part of March, I stick to pattern. When you decide to put that pattern in front of their face, or that crap pattern in front of their face, every gosh, is.
Yes, that's the vaccine. That's the main goal.
All you're doing is pointing the fly further and further away from that fish. What I do is I let the fly sit, and I look at the fish. You can always tell, call them players. Players are belly crawlers. They're going to be sitting there just crawling and moving very high. They're looking for anything to move. And more often than not, when they get close to your fly, that crab is startled because they know the fish is, you know, and then you just like scaring itself, and then when he's in
My drink.
that crab, trying to hurt it.
Crab pint.
Go down below. The pop and tick. Oh, that's my method of trying to get redfish to eat on fly. It's a quick pop. So redfish all about tides. Everything is tidal driven, especially in Tampa Bay. We get some really negative low tides, which is just an awesome thing because not only do fish, the snook, red trout, they get landlocked in some of these holes on the flies. Like there's a hole, man, surrounding them. the negative lows during winter time also give you the opportunity to see what the flat looks like without water cover. So you can see all the depressions, maybe little channels, structures like maybe little oyster bars or a rock or sticks or something out there that might be a habitat for not only fish but so when I'm looking at a wintertime redfish outing, let's say this gentleman here calls me up, wants to book a trip. First thing I look for are low tides. When is the low tide?
Get it over there.
Early morning low, let's say at 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay. We had a cold night previously. That mud is cold. It is exposed. Coldest part of the day, because we all know right before sunrise, it's cold. That mud gets really cold. Once the sun comes up, we have high sun, no clouds.
Start buying more of this salad mix.
And it's actually going to activate all those
Crappy.
Other than that, it's just the romaine.
as the tide comes in. And that water covers
Joseph Cook, could you please mute your computer?
who's following the tide to get the little creepy crawlies. Your redfish, your snook, trout, okay? I always try to look for a tide day that is between, on the high side, 0.5 and 1.5. 0.5 for most people, 0.5 is about right here. 1.5 is about right here. That's good tailing depth. That's what we look for tailing fish. You're in this deep water, and the fish are tailing, you're probably on the East Coast somewhere. Or Louisiana. So pretty much we're looking from here to here, okay? That's what we want as far as good weighting, tailing depth, but also keeping it low so you're able to see the fish. Once you get more than a foot to a foot and a half, sight casting gets a little more challenging. It's not that you can't do it, but it's definitely a lot easier when you have that 0 to 1 foot tide period. That period right on there is excellent sight casting, excellent weighting depth. That's so these are just some pictures of some of our Tampa Bay catches. Again, you know, redfish in Tampa Bay is very challenging. I can tell you my personal best day that I have yet to replicate was 5 fish in one day. That's me fishing. And it happened to fall on a tournament day. So 5 redfish on fly, that's my personal best. Next. And here's some more, and actually, go back one.
Yep.
And you can see when I'm talking about the shallow, you know, the low tides, you can see the grass behind on the shoreline. And same thing here, you can see the mangroves in the back, how low it is. Same thing with this. This fish here, I can tell you, we were sitting in, I had my skiff sitting in 4 inches of water. And we pulled that fish out of a hole that was only 8 inches deep. He was swimming with mullets in a hole 8 inches deep. And I actually had my skiff that floats in 4 inches, that floated in 4 inches of water, up in 4 inches of water on the bottom. We weren't going anywhere, nowhere to swim. Trying to walk him into eating, and he finally did. This one here, again, you can see the surrounding water, how low it is. Jay can attest to that fish. One other thing to go along with the popping tick, and I'll tell you from experience, when you present the fish, okay, if the fish is where this gentleman in the blue is, okay, and I presented to him, a lot of times people will strip like this. Always keep your rod tip pointed right at the fish. Wherever that fish is, you want that rod tip pointed at the fish, or very, very close. The more slack you have, that's a longer strip to try to wind right at them when you're stripping, you're gonna feel that take. And there's less stretch, less flex, less slack across. Quickly, get good hook set, feel that rod back. All right.
I'll answer his question in two answers. That fish, I lost it on the first, but it didn't spook. The second cast, we let it by what, 15 feet? Let it sit, like you said. And that one little tip reminder, because I forget things all the time, I'm getting old. But we watched it come and the little ticks, and it ate it and kept it straight. And what was it, 27?
Something like that, yeah. The first time he had it, his rod tip was pointing out here. I said, Jay, this time point the rod at the fish. Sure enough, that's it. That's what it did. Next. So, fly fishing vessels. So obviously everyone has their own way of fishing for redfish. Here in Florida with our shallow water applications, we have kayaks, we have paddle boards, we have canoes, we have technical pulling skiffs. Some people just wait, and however you do it, I think the big thing that you can tell in these pictures of my skiff and my kayak, they all have something in common. Both my kayak and my skiff, and when I'm waiting, I have some form of line management tool, whether it be a stripping mat or my wading bucket that I use for the beach. Line management is critical. If you're standing on the beach and the wave comes, takes your fly line all the way up there, you're trying to pull it back, and here comes 36-inch stuff. Same thing with redfish or tarpon or trout, whatever. Line management is critical. So however you fish, whatever vehicle you use, learn how to do that line management. That's going to save you a lot of headaches and going to give you a little bit of advantage. This is my skiff, just to give you an idea of what I fish out of. It's a Ancona Advent. It's a technical pulling skiff, like I said, made by the company down in Fort Pierce. Max horsepower on it, 60, and it'll run 40+ miles an hour. I've only had it up that fast one time. I'm not really much of a speed demon. But the great thing about this skiff is that it floats shallow and it pulls very, very quietly. One of the fish that you saw laying on the green stripping mat, I actually caught that fish last week. I was out by myself on this skiff. And this is how quiet the skiff is. Fish is tailing from here to Jay from me. I actually was pulling the skiff backwards. Pulled the skiff, got it about even to the fish, put the push pole in the clip on the pulling platform, set it down on the towel, picked up my rod, made the cast, caught this fish, put the power pole down, cast the fish, presented, caught it, whole 9 yards. But had this boat not have been that quiet, the fish would have stopped tailing, would have flown out. He never stopped, he just kept right on going. Never knew I was there. And there's another picture of the layout. As you can see, the stripping mat always on the front of the boat. Next. So this is another component to my fishing life that has kind of taken on a life of its own. Let's see. This was 2008, 2007, 2008, somewhere in that neighborhood. I started a tournament called Red Fly Tournaments. Red Fly number 1 was held at Cockroach Bay Ramp. There was about 20 to 25 anglers who fished it. We fished a 1-day fly fishing tournament, and we paid out spots for first, second, and third place, and most spots. Pretty much did that, throughout the years. And then Red Fly number 10 came around, and I said, you know what? Let's do something different for our 10th one. We started having the tournament at venues instead of boat ramps. So it was held at Flint Creek Outfitters, in Lithia, Flint Creek Outfitters in Tampa. Then we started doing them at various bars and restaurants around Apollo Beach. And then Red Flag number 10 came along, and I said, let's let's do something different. You know, I've always been involved with CCA. I'm a CCA life member. I said, let's put this term on. Let's see if we can get some raffle prizes and let's raise money for CCA. Well, red fly number 10 was a complete success. We had a bunch of raffle prizes. We donated a lot of money to CCA that day, and I said, no, we're going to keep this thing going. And also our tournament number 3, we have more and more anglers. Well, red fly number 10, 11, and 12 raised over $3,000 for CCA. Red fly 13 and 15 raised over $5,500 for Captains of Clean Waters. And then here, in the last couple of years, red fly 16, which was this past January, we raised $2,200 for Tampa Bay Waterkeeper, and we had 84 anglers compete, which was a red fly record. Red fly is the largest, longest running fly fishing for redfish only tournament in the country, to my knowledge, and it started with 25 guys on the program. So we're very thankful. Very happy about that. I had a chance to fish the Waterman tournament for Tampa Bay Waterkeeper last month in February, and it's a 2-day fly fishing for redfish tournament. They also have a snip Calcutta. They had 117 anglers, I think, or something like that. They had more anglers, but you know, we've been around for long. But they're a completely different animal, and they have an absolutely awesome setup. So if you're into tournament fishing, January and February, you have the red fly in January, and then the Waterman in February. 2 great fly fishing for redfish tournaments. And if you want to, keep up with the goings on of red fly, my other Facebook page is called @Redfly Tournaments on Facebook. And we always are looking to raise some sort of money for an organization, and with, I think what was mentioned with the Suncoast Water, with all the issues going on at Pine Point, me living in Ruskin, still having 7 miles from my house. Tampa Bay Water, donating to Tampa Bay Water was a no-brainer for me. So, and I've also committed to Adam Fernandez, who's one of the board members of Tampa Bay Water, that as long as I'm doing red fly, and as long as Tampa Bay Water is going to be around, that's what's getting our money for red fly. So I'm very happy about that. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Two questions. Sight fishing, what is your normal casting for regular recreational casting without sight? What is your normal?
So the question was, when you're sight casting, what is your normal casting distance? And then when you're, I guess, blind casting, you would say, what's your normal casting distance? So I always tell people, they're like, well, I don't know how to cast a fly rod. You can learn, it's not that hard. But I always tell people, if you can get 30 feet, you can give me 30 feet, I can put you on redfish. Now, whether or not they're going to eat, I don't know. But if you can hit a spot about the size of this fly box, 30 feet, you've got a better than average shot at catching that fish. Now, I've made casts to fish as far as 50 and 60 feet. Once you get out past that, it's kind of hard to see them in the water unless you're dealing with, very, very light sand and very shallow water, or they're doing something to make it easier to see. But if you see something, from here to the windows at the end of the room over there, and you make a cast like that and sight fish a fish from that far, you've really done something, because that's a pretty good distance. Even tarpon, most of your sight fish tarpon out on the beach or down on the flats of the Keys, you watch the shows, they're hooking the fish, 15, 20, with 15 or 20 feet of fly line out. They're not having to cast very far. Now, when you are blind casting, obviously you want to try and cover as much water as you can in one cast. You know, it's just like with a spinning rod. A spinning rod, you whip it, and you're throwing that mirrodine or that jig or whatever as far as you can, because you want to cover as much water as possible. So when you are blind casting out on a flat and you're drifting, yeah, you're going to want to try to muscle up and maybe throw out a 70, 80, 90-foot cast to try and cover as much water in one cast and one retrieve as possible, because that's the big difference between fly fishing and spin tackle. You know, I kind of liken it to hunting. You know, spin tackle is like hunting with a rifle. Okay? With a little bit of practice, anyone can take a rifle and drop a deer at 200 yards. The deer never even knows you're there. Fly fishing is when you get in a blind on the ground and close the distance to 30 yards on that deer or less. That's the difference between spin tackle and fly fishing. You know, with the hunting, is that you're closing the distance. I mean, your fly lines are usually what, 100, 105 feet long. That's really as far as you're going to ever cast out. Even if you throw all your fly line out, you only get 100 feet. Whereas with spin tackle, I can throw it 100, 200, 250 feet if I want to. Cover a lot more ground. So typically, sight or blind casting, you know, 50 to 60 feet. Sometimes I'm working a shoreline. If we're working a shoreline and I'm from here to, you know, that wall over there, that wall over there, I'm just blind casting right here, you know, because I'm working a structure point and I'm working a shoreline and thoroughly working that area by just peppering that shoreline with casts. But when I'm sight casting, usually anywhere from 30 to 50 feet or less. Yes, sir, you got it.
So I'm asking about the tournament, so what's the electrical?
So that's the cool thing about my tournament. To enter my tournament, it's $25 an angler or $50 per team. I ain't about all this $150, $300 nonsense to fish a tournament. Okay? I've always kept red fly inexpensive. I want to keep it that way because I want you to come to the weigh-in afterwards and spend your money on raffle tickets and try to win some raffle prizes, which my raffle tickets are usually $5 each and $5 for 20. So you can win a $750 power pole micro for a $5 ticket. Because I want you to spend your money so I can send that money out to big water. You can fish from whatever vessel you want. You can fish from skiff, canoe, kayak, paddleboard. You can wade. You want to blow up an inflatable unicorn and paddle it out on the flats, knock yourself out, you know, go ahead. Just when you are wading, if you're at a vessel, you have to say, I think you have to stay within 50 yards of your skiff, which is just a safety issue mostly, because you want you to stay close to where you're going to be staying. Another question was over. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what percentage would you say you sight fish versus blind cast or redfish?
So during the winter time, it really comes down to water clarity. If the water clarity and the tide is there, I am sight casting, if at all possible. Pretty much any time I'm fly fishing, any situation, I'm sight casting, if I can. Sometimes the conditions dictate that you can't sight cast and then you have to blind cast. My personal best redfish, which I actually caught just 2-3 weeks ago up in Chatsworthia. I was blind casting a hole with Captain Brian Chamberlain, and we were just blind casting holes with a redfish at snook, and the redfish came out, hit it, off and went. So it really depends on the situation. Now, if it were up to me, I would sight cast every day for the rest of my life and never blind cast again. Because A, blind casting, that's a lot of casts. You get tired, you know, I mean, a lot. But sometimes the conditions dictate that you do have to blind cast. But typically, in any situation that I'm in, I'm trying to sight cast as much as possible. You know, I'm off the beaches for snook. You know, when I'm back in the rivers for juvenile tarpon, I'm blind casting, but I'm casting the fish that I just saw roll, and I'm anticipating where they're going to be. So I'm casting to an area, so I'm not technically sight casting, but I see them doing their thing. And, yes, sir.
I just wanted to add it to your red flag. Another thing that's cool about John's tournament, all the entry fees go right back into the payout. He doesn't keep any.
Yeah, it's 100% payout.
100% payout. So it really is for the fishermen and for the event.
Yeah, I keep it 100% payout. I don't make any money off the tournament or anything like that, but again, my objective is to get you, after you catch your 2 fish, come back to winning, you win your $700, $800, $900, however much it is, and you can just blow it on raffle tickets. That's what I want you to do. So, which ends up happening more often than what you think. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Nice one. Question about redfish behavior on the side casting. So I struggle with redfish that are moving from point A to point B as opposed to ones that are face down.
Okay. All right, so I call them players. Some people call them belly crawlers, some people just call them redfish. If I see that a fish is a player, that is a relaxed fish. He is actively hunting. He does not know I am there. And if he does know I'm there, he simply doesn't care. And he's never going to be like this. When fish are moving from point A to point B, you know, they're not, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to stop eating. They have already spooked. They're getting where they need to be. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention, in Tampa Bay, I hate these guys. In Tampa Bay, our redfish are so smart that they've hired security. They have a security detail. I ain't lying. These guys swim with sheep's head. You'll have 5 or 6 sheep's head in a group. There's going to be one redfish right in the middle of it. Well, if you know anything about sheep's head, they are beyond spooky. Like, they just blow out at the moment's notice. Well, the redfish swim with the sheep's head. When the sheep's head blow out, guess what? The redfish are on alert and they blow out too. That's their security. They hire a security force. I always look for fish that are very calm. They're just, their tails are moving like this. Their faces are down. A lot of times their pec fins are flared because they're lit up. They're excited. They're actively hunting. They're eating. If you get a fish that's moving down the flat like this, no, chances are it's not going to happen. Now, should you go ahead and cast at it? If there's nothing else around, absolutely, let it rip. But chances are you're probably not going to catch that fish. And like anything else, if you have a fish going away from you and it's moving, don't throw over its back and bring the bait back to it because that's not what bait does. Okay. Let those fish go. Wait for the next ones to come along. You know, it's the same thing with your beach snook. If your beach snook are cruising down the beach and they're acting like they got somewhere they want to be, or they're alerted to your presence, chances are it's not going to happen. And that's really with any fish too. But redfish especially, look for that very calm body language, you know, very methodical in how they move. Now there are some instances where a fish will bust up against the mangroves and come out onto a flat and just kind of sit there. That's a fish that's kind of keyed up because he just ate. He might be ready to go. That's something you might want to try and drop in on. If he stops and slows down and calms himself down, that's a fish that could play. But your fish that are moving from point A to point B, very rarely you get that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
With all the redfish that you personally have caught or in your clients, have you picked up any of the CCA tag redfish at all?
No. No. I have not. I'll just leave it at that. I've never caught a tag redfish outside of the inside or outside of the tournament. I did catch a FWC tag redfish one time in Palm Sola Bay. It was 28, 9. It was actually a really big tag redfish. Tag had been in there for a long time, covered all sorts of green algae. Even the lady I called up and said, "Oh, that's a big one." It had been released up around McDill, made its way all the way down to the bay, was down in Palm, so I caught it on a top water club. But no CCA tagged redfish. Yes, ma'am.
How do you do the water?
How did I do the waterman? Well, so, we had 84 anglers fish red fly, and a lot of us spent a full day getting our asses handed to us by Tampa Bay Redfish. So then we decided, well, let's do that for 2 days instead, and see if we get anything different. So I probably saw more redfish than I could even begin to count during the waterman. And I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of good anglers that fished the waterman tournament and the red fly tournament that zeroed out, and we saw fish all throughout the weekend. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, and then I have a 5 redfish day on it. It was during red fly number 6. We ended up finishing second or third. I caught 5 fish in one day. Now with the red fly, it's the longest with 2 redfish combined inches, so only 2 of those matter. But I still caught 5. So as we've been getting more anglers fishing red fly, our total has been going up. Now this year, red fly 16, based on the weather, based on the tides, and based on how many anglers we had, 84, I would have bet money that it would take 60 inches to win. I even told, I fished my cousin, I told my cousin, I said, we need 60 inches to win this deal. 55 and a half, won. Blew me away. The next month in the waterman, 65 inches more. 230 plus inch fish is what you need to even come close to win. I think Rusty Chinnis, I think, finished what, second or third? Second, and he was 60, I think it's like 62 or 63 inches, and the guys who beat him had 65 inches. The guys that won the waterman had won the red fly tournament. Actually, this year they won the red fly and the waterman, and they won the red fly. These are some really good anglers. We get anglers from all over the state, especially all over the Tampa Bay area. And if you're just looking to meet more fly anglers, both of those events are awesome opportunities to get plugged in with the Tampa Bay fly fishing circle. Between there, those 2 events, and then Poonfecta, Barfly, and Barfly is kind of like the unofficial central hub of fly fishing in Tampa Bay over there in Safety Harbor. So we have quite a large fly fishing community. We're all of us are all hyped and ready for target. That's pretty much all we're thinking about now. So I caught my last county redfish of the season last week, and I'm just thinking about target right now. So, but yeah, I would have bet you money that I would have taken 60 inches to win red fly, and 55 I ended up winning. It's crazy.
What happened to Night Point? What's the final solution with the commotion?
Honestly, I don't know. I believe that's still ongoing. At least it was still ongoing as far as like the lawsuits and cleanup. It was ongoing as of the waterman tournament because they had some people speaking at their awards banquet that were working with the Tampa Bay Water Authority to file those lawsuits. The Tampa Bay Estuary Program had some speakers that were talking on that, and I believe they're working on getting that reservoir or whatever it was emptied and cleaned out so that this doesn't happen again. So it definitely had an effect on all over the way. I saw that firsthand. Aside from being a fly fishing guy, I'm a full-time school teacher, and I also drive tiki boats over in John's Pass. And I can tell you that I saw the effects of that Pine Point spill over at John's Pass in Madeira Beach because the water looked like crap. And we had a big algae bloom, red tide blew up, and it was really nasty. And even the little Manatee River had a lot of floating fish in it. Last year my juvenile tarpon fishing was really affected by the red tide. I didn't go out that much. So whatever the outcome ends up being, I hope that they empty that place out and don't let this thing happen again. First thing, gas cutting all the spot things, get out of Florida.
Or you run into a school, they're just slowly doing their food or wet. After some presentation,
So typically in Tampa Bay, because of the amount of pressure, we don't see large schools of reds in Tampa Bay. Usually we're throwing to doubles and triples. And what I want to try to do is get that fly in front of those 2, 3, 4 fish. And that's when I might kind of speed up the fly just a little bit because I want to trigger that competition instinct because they're going to start fighting over it.
So they're actually competing that whole scenario.
They can be, or sometimes we block them into eating. Sometimes, you know, they will compete instantly. They see a piece of food and they know they're swimming with their buddies, like, ooh, this is an opportunity because again, they're lazy. And they'll actually start competing with their buddies for that piece of food. Now, whether or not they stay on it, they like the presentation, sometimes I'll just chase it and just veer off. But typically, I'm going to try and get ahead of this fish. Now, if it is a large school, like I know sometimes down here in Sarasota Bay, you guys get the fish to school up. You know, I would not, if the school of fish was in front of me, I would not just bomb it right in the middle of them. I would stick to the outskirts, the outside, to try and catch the lead fish, try and catch the side fish, or sometimes even maybe go behind the lead fish, go to those stragglers and like try to kick up something that the other, or pick up something that the other fish kicked up as they're going over the fly.
And block their pattern.
A lot of times with those schooling fish, it happens during a time when bait fish are prevalent on the flats, and that's when you can get away, excuse me, with a bait fish pattern. Any other questions? No. All right, well, guys, thank you so much. Questions on the ground for a little bit here.